For the early laning phase, as the creeps meet or before the creeps meet, the most important thing is to contest bounty runes. Each bounty rune gives your team 200 gold split between the 5 players. That means if you get all 4 bounty runes, which is rare, your team will have an 800 gold lead at minute 0, which is a ridiculous lead. If you can get just 3 runes, your team will have a 400 gold lead at minute 0, which is still substantial. Your minimum goal should be to make sure that you get at least 2 bounty runes. A strategy to stack the odds in your favour at the bounty runes is to make sure you are very strong on one lane. Here I go to the off lane with Zeus and Legion. This sentry ward placement you saw is just to block the enemy pool camp. If you hold down Alt, it will show you the spawn boxes of each camp. If you place an observer or sentry within that spawn box, no creeps will be able to spawn there. So by doing this, the enemy team can't pull unless they remove that sentry. This is sometimes what I use the sentry ward I buy at the start for if I do this aggressive maneuver for the bounty runes. So you see we have 3 people bottom for the bounty rune spawn. They are likely to only have 2, so we can take a good fight 3v2. We might get first blood, and we should get at least 2 runes for sure. Because Void has an escape spell, he can go for a rune steal top. So you see that we get 3 bounty runes here, and although we don't get first blood, we get a decent amount of harassment damage on the enemy offlane. After doing this play for the bounty runes, you can just TP back to your safe lane and carry on the lane as normal. A quick note though, if you do this trick and TP back to your safe lane, you have to play more passively, as it's disastrous if you die with your TP off cooldown, because you then have to run back to lane, which takes maybe 35 or 40 seconds without boots and can be disastrous for the safe lane. So if you do this aggressive trick, just play passively and be sure not to die with your TP off cooldown. Another trick you can do if you have gone for aggression at the offlane bounty runes is to attempt a courier snipe. After the runes, you have enough time to walk mid and hide in the trees between the tier 1 and tier 2 towers. A lot of mid players will bring out a salve on the courier with the gold they got at the bounty runes. I paused the video here to show how I can stand in the trees in a way where I can see vision of the lane, yet I am out of vision for the Radiant team. This is important because you need to anticipate the courier path and walk into it. It takes 2 hits to destroy a walking courier, and if you don't anticipate it and walk into its path, often your second attack it will have got out of range. I duck back into the trees because the enemy creeps are coming, and then I poke my head back out once they have passed. Usually when I try this, by this point I would have already TP'd to the safe lane, because usually they will buy the salve straight away and ferry it out straight away. So if they haven't used the courier by, I think it's roughly 30 seconds, the courier often comes with the first creep wave. If they haven't used it by then they're not going to use it at all. However, in this scenario I was confident Storm would eventually bring us out, so I was just patient and waited. After you get the courier, you can just TP back to the safe lane and play the lane as normal, being more passive now that your TP is on cooldown. Whilst this can be slightly risky because obviously it's a waste of time and hinders you safe lane if you don't get the courier, when you've been aggressive at the offlane bounty runes and have to TP safe lane anyway, it's very efficient to just hang around mid looking for the courier in case they use it really early, and then TP when the creeps meet. In the current meta, at high levels, the vast majority of games will have a dual lane safe lane and a dual lane off lane. At lower levels, where people are slower to catch on to the meta, you may still find solo off lanes and defensive tri lanes, or a roaming hero on position 4. Tri-laning makes it much more important to zone the enemies from XP range, because in your tri-lane you are sharing the XP between 3 heroes. If you cannot zone the enemies out, the enemy dual offlaners will start to outlevel you, and then they can beat you 2v3, which is a disaster. It's important to identify the type of enemy offlane as soon as possible. You want to identify whether you are up against a weak solo offlane or you are up against a strong dual offlane, because it greatly changes how you need to play the lane, and even at the very start it changes how you need to react as the creeps meet and what you do at the start of the game. I will elaborate on the different ways to play against each lane in a later video.